Hi guys, this is Ruqian Chow, pro member of Team DDG, and you're listening to Dead Draw Gaming, like no one ever was.
What's up, Dead Drawers, and welcome to episode number 72 of Dead Draw Gaming, a Pokemon TCG podcast like no one ever was. We have a super exciting episode for you guys today, so if you are hyped just like we are, make sure to hit that like button down below and share this podcast with all of your friends. We'd like to tell you guys, we have a ton of stuff to talk about today, plus a cheeky little interview for you guys. But first, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you guys to my co-hosts who are with me every single week. Hello, Danny. Hello, Darrin. What's going on today, boys?
What up, guys? Darrin here, and boy, if you live in the Midwest like us, it's been nothing but rain, and I'm so tired of rain. So later in this episode, Dan will tell you all about it. We are going to do our weekly top 5 about water-type Pokemon. That's what I'm most excited for at this very exact second, because I really like a certain water-type Pokemon. Very nice.
I know which one it is.
I'm doing well. Danny, how are you doing?
What Night March Pokemon is water? I'm really struggling here to think of what...
Delta species, Danny.
Oh, I got nothing. I guess I'll have to wait for the top 5. I'm doing super, super, super good and super, super, super tired, and that's pretty much it. Like Darrin said, the rain is in full force. Thank goodness it's not snow, because it would be like 800 inches of snow that would have fallen. But I left for work this morning, and it was like a giant sheet of just ice. So that's cool.
Yeah, Darrin, remember when we lived in North Dakota? How many times did it rain in February?
It was rare.
So, could be worse. And I'm also doing very well. And I'm going to tell you guys all about how you guys are going to be doing well over the next roughly hour and a half because of how great these podcast topics are.
Ooh,
you guys want to hear
baby. Yep, please.
All right. Well, we are going to start you guys off like we do every single week and hit you up with that Pokemon news. Then we are going to jump into our St. Louis review because we did just have the regionals that were held in Collinsville, Illinois, which is suburb of St. Louis. So we're going to be able to talk all about that. Then we are going to jump in. We have an interview scheduled with the runner-up from St. Louis, Natalie Shampay. Very much looking forward to that. Then we will jump into our weekly top 5, which we will give you guys our top 5 water-type Pokemon of all time. Then we're going to do our DannyBox, our question of the week, our buy, sale, trade of the week, our open discussion, and our wrap. So send it on over to Danny and Darrin. I'll let those guys touch up on the non-TCG news side of things, and then we'll keep going.
I'll hop in here with the Pokemon Go news. The only really big news that we have to talk about is Community Day is on Saturday. Community Day this time around is featuring Dratini, which, when evolved into Dragonite, will know Draco Meteor. You'll also get 3x Stardust while catching your Dratini. So get out there, trainers. For our Asia Pacific listeners, you will have to catch yours from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. GMT. And then Europe, Middle East, Africa, India, that'll be 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. UTC. And Americans in Greenland, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So yeah, that's that would be, Dan, that'd be for us, that'd be 1 o'clock until 4 o'clock. I'm definitely going to go check this out after a very special interview with a certain unnamed trainer from across the globe.
Trainer? Is he any good? Or she?
It is a male trainer, and he's pretty good. But I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to hype it up because he'll be...
That tells everybody what it is.
I'm going to cut that out. I don't know. It's going to be a secret.
Darn it.
But yeah, Community Day, Saturday, going to be fun. And that's about all we got for Pokemon Go news.
Nice. So there's a lot of news this week, but there's a few things that are not TCG related that I'm just going to gloss over real quick. So we do have a new anime episode coming out. So Pokken-Chi has revealed a new episode title for upcoming episode of the anime. The episode airs on March 15th and features Alima and his Smurgle playing ping pong. That comes out on March 15th, Darren. Mark your calendar. And then
Something about a Smeargle playing ping pong sounds crazy exciting to me. Like, actually.
Oh, well, then you
super
can mark your
entertaining.
calendar also.
I'm gonna.
There you go. Then for Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, you guys will be happy to know that the fourth Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon global mission has finished in a success. This global mission's theme was to harvest Pokebeans and was a success at Pokebeans gained. As it was a success, the gift of 2,000 festival coins or 4,000 festival coins if the game is connected to the global link is now available. Finally, for Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, for those of you who participated in the 2018 International Challenge January Battle Competition, the entry gift is now available to all qualifying players. All you have to do is hop on over to cerebi.net. You can click the link and you get 50 battle points and you can redeem those up to March 31st. So there you go. That's all the non-TCG related news that I really have opened.
Nailed
that I think
it.
needed talking about. So awesome. Let's move into some of this TCG goodness because we got a lot of big stuff that came out over the past week, including almost an entire set list for Forbidden Light. I was actually talking to one of our pro players, Rukan, told me that this weekend he should have his article out already for what to look out for from Forbidden Light. I know he's super pumped for a couple
Wow.
of these cards, but let's go over some of them. So, Dan, you want to take the first one?
I do. And you guys, I want to tell you, I was so close. You guys remember last week when we talked about Frogadier? I said Greninja GX is going to have an ability called Sudden Shuriken. It's going to say place 5 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon.
I do remember.
I remember.
So, anyways, you guys, Greninja GX is a water type stage 2 Pokemon with 230 HP that evolves from Frogadier. It has an ability called Wind Shuriken. When you play this card from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may put 3 damage counters on one of one's Pokemon. It has 2 attacks. Its first attack, Water Colorless, Haze Slash, does 110 damage. You may shuffle this Pokemon and all cards attached to it into your deck. Water Colorless, Shadow Assassin GX. This attack does 130 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. Do not apply weakness and resistance. You cannot use more than 1 GX attack in a game. Oh, man. Guys, PCO, they're like, you know what, Dan, that idea is too good. We're gonna knock it down just a second. I was very close.
You were extremely close. I am pretty disappointed. If it had been 5, that'd be great. However,
It would have been busted though. It would have been super good.
this. So there is at least a chance of cycling through Greninja GXs, right? If you use Haze Slash, you have to have like 3 Greninjas set up and to cycle through these because you have to have 3 energy placements, or I guess you could do 2 with double colorless energy.
Well, I would think that you would pair this with something like Zoroark instead of playing it on its own.
Right. Man, when you play this card from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, place 3 damage counters, it doesn't feel like it's strong enough.
It really doesn't, considering like Decidueye's Feather Arrow does what, 20 per turn?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean this does 10 more damage, but only once. Like you have to use De-Evolution Spray. And I get like this needs to be better than Crobat. Because it's a GX.
I'm just
Crobat did the same thing.
not impressed.
So yeah, I agree. You could pair this up with like Buzzwole or something if you wanted to go that route, like an old Landy Bats type thing. Bring that into the format. But I don't know if... I mean, you could water duplicates. You got a full bench. Throw down 3 or 4 of these, and that's great. Super Scoop Up is still around. You could make it work, I guess. I think Dan kind of had it a little bit better with... It needs to be better than 3. I think middle of the road, let's do 4. Let's just change it. Let's make it 4 damage counters instead. Can we make that happen?
I would love to. Let's see an errata come out, and then it's just they errata the Japanese version and just fix it for the English and other language release.
I mean, it's happened before.
Oh, yes, for sure.
So, might as well.
Why don't I hop on another card here? I want to talk about Bonnie, the full art. It's real cute. So Bonnie, we talked about it right when it came out. Just to refresh everyone's memory, Bonnie is a supporter that says you can only play this card if there's a stadium in play. Discard the stadium card that is in play during this turn. Even if you have already used a GX attack, your Zygarde GX may use its GX attack. I just think it's super, super cute and really bright, and I love it. It's nice.
Can you imagine spamming this? Like, if you could find a way to spam this and just keep using Zygarde's Judgment GX attack, and your opponent just can't attack you.
Man, if you can even get it off for 2 or 3 turns, that's 2 or 3 turns that you can't damage that Zygarde.
Yeah, especially if you're going against a Zoroark heavy deck. I mean, you're just consistently knocking out Zoroarks.
Yes, absolutely right.
It does the same
side.
thing as what Field Blower does, except for lets you use Zygarde's GX attack again, and it's a supporter, obviously.
Yes, that is the downside, is that, you lose your draw support for the turn, so this would have to be paired with something that helps you draw. Zygarde he would probably work well with Zoroark, so maybe Zygarde Zoroark will be the thing. Trainer's Mails, and I don't know, maybe just anything that helps you draw might make Bonnie and Zygarde a thing. Cool. What else we got? Dan, do you got a leak for us?
Yeah. Did you guys see this lady card?
Ooh, baby.
Lady. So lady is a supporter that reads, search your deck for up to 4 basic energy cards, reveal them, and put them into your hand, shuffle your deck. You may only play 1 supporter card during your turn before you attack. So this is pretty neat.
Dude, this is awesome. This is super awesome.
You just grab those 4 metals real quick, and magnetic circuit, magnetic circuit, magnetic circuit, magnetic circuit, and Meteor Tempest for knockout. Don't even need Mount Coronet. Also something Alolan Dugtrio.
Right.
But not even metal. I mean, how many other Pokemon can take advantage of this? There's quite a bit.
That's actually what I was going to ask, is how many other Pokemon can take advantage of this? Like outside of Magnezone, what lets you spam that many energy in a turn?
Blastoise?
Well, I was talking about standard.
Oh. I want to say Greninja, but for like water shurikens,
Mm-hmm.
it definitely fits best with Magnezone.
Yeah, or like you said, I mean, Dugtrio could use it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sure there's other things that we're not thinking of on the top of this, but...
Yeah, I mean, when I first saw this card, I was kind of on the fence about it. Obviously, with Magnezone, it's going to help out Metal a whole lot, but I still don't know if Metal's going to be good enough, even
Also,
with something like this.
Well, Metal didn't show up super hot in St. Louis. We'll talk about that in a minute, but the full art of this card, oh my gosh, it's such a good looking card.
It is good looking. Dude, hey, this actually works with the Dragonair with the attack that lets you
Dragon's
play as
Wish.
many. Yeah, Dragon's Wish. There you go.
I got you.
There's 4 energy, and then yeah.
What is that from? Guardians Rising? Or
I
Burning
believe that
Shadow?
was Sun and Moon.
It was
like
when
the
we
base
did our. It was when we did our battle against Trainer TV.
Yeah, that was Sun and Moon base.
Yep,
Okay.
Sun and Moon.
Sun and Moon.
Nice. All right. Well, we can move on to. I'll keep the train rolling with the supporter cards, and I'll talk about Diantha from
Nice.
Forbidden Light. So you can only play this card if one of your fairy type Pokemon was knocked out during your opponent's last turn. Choose 2 cards from your discard pile and put them into your hand. So this is relevant, obviously, with the resurgence of Gardevoir decks. I don't know how popular Gardevoir was in Collinsville, But Gardevoir is still obviously a force to be reckoned with, and this definitely helps out a little bit. I can't think of anything that you would really play it with otherwise, because I can't think of any fairy decks that are relevant in the format right now that have even really been tested. Pretty much just Gardevoir, right?
Yeah, Gardevoir, and I don't know, maybe this helps Xerneas make a resurgence? I don't know. It's a strong, this is a very strong thing. A discard teammates for fairy decks, I like it. And Diantha looks really good. I expect to see it in some decks, but I don't know, maybe some other fairy type deck will come out of the woodwork now. Who knows?
It's kind of annoying that it's got to be fairy.
Yeah, it is.
When you think of teammates, what made teammates so strong? And that was search your deck.
Mm-hmm.
But teammates was any Pokemon gets knocked out, right? Why does Diantha have to be strictly fairy? You're already at a disadvantage, in my opinion, by just searching through your discard pile. And teammates was even only a 1 of, maybe a 2 of in some decks. And teammates really wasn't played that much until later on in its life in the format. Then it started getting really big in Night March and other decks too. So to me, this is just kind of like a bulk supporter that you get, no different than a Tierno or a Charon or a Hala or something like that, or a How at this point in its life.
I can definitely see that. Another great thing about teammates is that it's strong at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end of a game. Diantha is really only going to gain strength as a game progresses, so if you draw it in your opening hand, it's garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there.
It helps out with all the puzzles that get played. This is just a different way of getting stuff out of your discard, but like you said, it's got to be later in the game as far as it progresses.
Yeah. Certainly seems like a better expanded card than standard. With VS Seeker, you could throw this early game and use it later.
Bring back Fairy Box.
Let's continue this trend, talking about fairy Pokemon. Let's talk about Xerneas GX from Forbidden Light.
Okay.
Xerneas GX is a 180 HP fairy basic. Its first attack for 1 colorless is Run Through. It does 20 damage. This attack does 20 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon as well. So it's 20-20. Its second attack for 2 fairy and 1 colorless is Aurora Horn. 120 damage, just vanilla. And its final attack, 2 fairy, 1 colorless, Sanctuary GX. Move all damage counters from each of your Pokemon to your opponent's active Pokemon. It is weak to metal, resists darkness, and a retreat cost of 2. I don't hate this card, but we live in a meta where one-hit knockouts are still pretty common. There are some decks like Glycopod where you're doing 2 hits, but this, and I guess we'll see if Glaceon takes off, because that would be 2 or 3 hit KOs. But Sanctuary GX in a 1-hit KO meta doesn't seem that good.
No, and its second attack, isn't anything great. Like you said, we live in a kind of a 1-hit KO meta where even I don't know, you have a base attack, base damage of 150 where you add Choice Band on to hit that 180, or you have to Kukui for that 200 or something, hit those magic numbers. So first of all, 180 is a little bit average, but it's almost a little weak right now compared to what other decks are playing. As far as Tapu Lele is 170, obviously, but then you have Buzzwole, which is 190, and Lycanroc, I think, is 200, and then Zoroark is 210, Gardevoir is 220, I think.
I think it's, yeah.
Well, 180 really isn't anything that great anymore. And we sure are entering an era where spread damage seems to be very popular. But for 1 colorless energy to do 20 to the active and 20 to the bench, first of all, 1 energy isn't, to do 40 damage total isn't terrible. But even going back to Buzzwole, you're hitting 30 and 20. This is only 20 and 20. And I understand that it's 1 colorless. It doesn't have to be fairy. And this may be something that you run a 1 of in a Gardevoir deck or something like that, but I don't think this is anything that you build a deck around, at least not in this point. It's Sanctuary GX attack. That's kind of cool. It could see some play could see some relevancy, which may make the whole one of tech idea, it could be a thing because of that.
Right.
But again, it's really it would be cooler if it was like, is it Dusknoir that lets you put damage counters on to your opponent's Pokemon in any way you'd like?
It's Dusknoir makes or lets you move damage counters among your opponent's Pokemon. Yes.
Yeah. So it would be cooler if it was something like that, where it's not just take all of your opponent's damage and move them all to the active.
Oh,
That's
no,
my
this
own
is
personal opinion.
move all damage
be-
counters from your Pokemon, put them on your... So
Oh.
it heals all your Pokemon and puts it all on your opponent's active.
I was reading that wrong. So that's like almost like a better damage change Mewtwo type thing.
Yes. Yeah,
Oh, that's
for
kind of
sure.
cool.
Yeah, it's a decent GX attack. And like you said, with the rise of spread damage, maybe it will see relevancy. Maybe Ninja Boy comes back, I don't know. I just don't know, man. Like, getting 2 fairy and a colorless on here, that's kind of rough. If it was 1 fairy and 2 colorless, I think it would be much more feasible. But this only goes in a straight fairy deck now because of that energy cost.
Yeah.
I mean, rainbow energy, I guess. I don't know.
Dan.
Well, I mean, maybe in like Xerneas Break, if that ever makes a little comeback, or like Rainbow Road, which is already playing a pretty high count of fairy energy in Max Elixir.
Well, that's about all we got to say about the Xerneas GX. Who's got the next leak?
How did you guys have we hit Eviltal GX?
Not yet.
Seems perfectly fitting after we just got done talking about Xerneas. So, Eviltal GX is a basic dark type with 180 HP. Has 3 attacks. His first attack for 1 darkness energy, called Absorb Life, 20 damage. Heal this Pokemon the same amount of damage you did to your opponent's active Pokemon. Second attack for colorless. Evil Sonic does 100 damage. This attack's damage isn't affected by weakness or resistance. And then it's GX attack for 1 darkness energy, Death Count GX. If your opponent's active Pokemon has exactly 4 damage counters on it, it is knocked out. You can't use more than 1 GX attack in a game. It is weak to lightning, resistant to fighting, has a retreat cost of 2.
I think we finally got an Evital card that's really not that good.
No, this one's not.
Again,
Not
its GX
very.
attack is kind of cool, but
Its GX attack is going to get translated into something else also. That attack name doesn't stay. Bet.
That's true. It won't say death count. It'll say something else.
But yeah, no, you're right. We got an Eviltal and it's I know there's like people out there that there were conversations about maybe trying to abuse the first attack, but there's just not enough ways to output damage right now to where it'd be super helpful.
why couldn't it be 1 darkness for 40? And then don't even do the heal from this Pokemon. Just do 1 darkness for 40. That makes its GX attack more relevant.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, why am I going to want to... It's not like you have... Okay, so you can do 20, you can choice band for 50, but then that makes the death count GX attack completely irrelevant if you're hitting for 50. You could attach a Fighting Fury Belt, then you're only hitting for 30. So you can basically... All you can do is just hit a Kukui and do this, and then that makes death count GX, but then you're only healing 40, and it's only got 180. And we just talked about how one-hit KOs are pretty much all over the place, and 180 isn't that tough a number to hit anymore. I just think they could have done some better things with this, and I don't really know what I'm excited about in this set so far, which is disappointing because I remember when we were looking over a bunch of the initial scans and card leaks from Ultra Prism, I was like, oh, this is cool. This could be playable. This could be playable. And all the time I'm like, really? This is the way the meta's going to shift in May? Like, it's not...
So I think the Greninja line will definitely see some play. Malamar is going to be pretty cool. I think Malamar will be better than what Bronzong was.
Yeah, but as far as like GX cards go, your ultra rare cards go,
Yeah,
there hasn't been anything that I'm super excited about. And Greninja GX, okay, fine, maybe, but it's something we've seen before.
Ultra Necrozma could definitely be cool, I think. Like, we literally get Ray Eels back.
Yeah, that's true.
except with not as cool Pokemon.
Hopefully I'm forgetting something. Anything else you guys want to say about Evital?
Nah, it's bad.
All right. I am going to move on to... I'm going to take Volcanion Prism Star.
Nice.
Because why not? So this is a water Pokemon, 160 HP. It's a basic. Obviously, you can only have one Prism Star card with this name in your deck. It's got an ability called Jet Geyser. Once during your turn before you attack, you may discard a water energy from your hand. If you do, your opponent switches their active Pokemon with one of their benched Pokemon. And then for 3 water energies, it does Sauna Bomb, which does 100 damage. This attack does 20 damage to each of your opponent's benched Pokemon.
Isn't the point of only being able to play one Prism Star card in your deck because they're good?
You don't like this?
Not really. If you got to choose which Pokemon, then it would be kind of busted. But you don't. You've seen effects like this before that literally never got played.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't have to use the effect. Like, you can use the... Like, if you throw this as a one-of in your deck, I mean, it's not like you're relying on that 60th card all the time. That 60th card is usually something that's going to come in and help you out occasionally to get you some wins.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this ability could definitely get you some wins with 160 HP, which is a decent bulk for a Prism Star. You throw that on your bench, it could definitely come up clutch in a lot of situations. I don't know if I necessarily think that the attack is that great, considering the fact that you've got to put 3 water energies on it, but you have Aqua Patch. It's not like... I mean, you're already discarding with Jet Geyser, so you can Aqua Patch them back on, and you can hit for 130 and spread some damage to the bench. And if it gets KO'd, it's only 1 prize. I don't think it's a terrible Prism Star card. I think it's better than some of the ones that we've had.
I actually agree that this is better than some other Prism Star cards, but still not as good as I want it to be. I wish Jet Geyser's ability wasn't that your opponent chooses what they're switching. I wish it was a Lysander effect.
I think then they would have to change it completely, though, like when you play this card from your hand to your bench, kind of like what Lycanroc does. Otherwise, like being able to basically have a Lysander effect every turn,
Yeah, boy, Prism Star.
that's pretty broken.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. It's this is like you said, it's better than some Prism Stars. Not quite there for me. I think it's pretty good, but
I mean, Escape Rope sees a lot of play and has seen a lot of play. And granted, you get to switch your own, which is helpful, but there's some situations where you'll play Escape Rope without anything on your bench just to get rid of something in the active to help yourself out and stall games.
the Halucha with Sudden Cyclone, it's when this comes into play, your opponent switches. That didn't see much play. I think right when it came out, some people tested with it a little, but
Yeah, it was tested in like Mega Gardevoir, and then, but there was also, what was it, Swallow from like Boundaries Crossed. I know that was a stage 1, but you could do it every turn. You just sat on your bench. Literally,
Yeah,
never
that's
saw
true.
that got any play ever.
I don't know. I don't think this is too bad.
I think this is better than Eviltal GX.
I
You
think
could
that's
throw this
fair.
in a Greninja GX deck. Have your opponent bring up something that's not as easily retreatable.
But how often is it now that your opponent doesn't have something on the bench that doesn't have free retreat or a floatstone attached?
Mm-hmm. A lot. I mean, a lot of times they've got... It's amazing how we move into a format now where, I mean, so many times people are playing 3 to 4 Guzmas in a deck, or even without Escape Rope in format anymore. Or is Escape Rope in format? It is in format, isn't it?
It is.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like there's a lot of times where people are easily able to get out of certain situations. Plus, with the draw power that Zoroark GX brings, if you don't have something currently in your hand, you can easily get it. You have accessibility to just about every card in your deck, which makes things difficult. But you could, here you go, partner this up with Xerneas GX.
There you go.
Use its GX attack and put a bunch of your damage on a new active. I don't know. I'm just saying, I don't think it's too terrible. What else we got, Darren?
Let's talk about Esper and Meowstick. They are coming in Forbidden Light. Esper is a 60 HP Psychic basic. Its attack is for 1 Psychic energy play, move an energy attached to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon to another one of their Pokemon. It has a retreat cost of 1, weak to Psychic types. Meowstick, 90 HP Psychic, stage 1, of course. And its first attack, Teleport Break for 1 Psychic, does 20 damage. Switch this Pokemon with one of your benched. Second attack, 1 Psychic, 1 Colorless. It's called Psychic. Sorry, I kind of got confused for a second when I said Psychic earlier. Anyway, 30 plus damage. This attack does 30 more damage for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. Weak to Psychic, retreat cost of 1. This is pretty blah.
I mean, they gotta print bad cards too, right?
You're right. I mean, yes.
I think we just talked about the lack of good cards that they've printed.
Yeah.
I also
You're
don't
not
like
wrong.
the artwork on either of these cards.
Well, I don't really like the design of either of these Pokemon either, so Meowstick is kind of cool, but I'm not overly excited for either of them.
Yeah, these are both just set fillers. Nothing to see here. Move along, folks.
All right, what else we got, Dan?
We got Carbank promo that was released in Koro. This is a 90 HP fighting basic Pokemon. It has 2 attacks. Its first attack for 1 fighting energy called Diamond Gate. Search your deck for a supporter card and a stadium card. Reveal them and put them into your hand. Then shuffle your deck. Its second attack for fighting colorless. Guard Press does 60 damage. During your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes 20 damage less from attacks. After applying weakness and resistance, it has a weakness to grass, no resistance, and a retreat cost of 1. I'm not 100% certain where this will be coming at, but again, not a very good card. Its first attack is definitely interesting, and I think definitely could be more interesting once in is not in format anymore.
You can throw one of these in your Primal Groudon list.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree with that.
This is the most playable card we've talked about all night.
I'm gonna disagree with you on that one.
That was a joke.
Oh.
Slim
Sorry,
pickings,
Jack.
I think, this week, but this one's not. Yeah, I think its first attack is decent. I don't know if this is. I mean, this isn't a good card by any means, but its first attack is definitely something that you can take advantage of, and I'm sure that you would be able to take advantage of later on, once the meta continues to shift. Like Regirock, for example, came out and that wasn't played at the beginning, and then started getting a lot more play and became a more expensive card. And it was a harder to find card too. But there's a lot of times I think where you're going to need to, I mean, giving you the ability to find a supporter and a stadium card, especially maybe early on in the game, not too bad. Even later in the game, it's just like Alolan Vulpix sees a lot of play for its beacon attack. Granted, that's no energy whatsoever. It would be nice if this did maybe like 10 damage, but I don't think they would be willing to let you take a supporter and a stadium card and do damage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's too bad. Yeah, I wish it did 10 damage, then we could use damage modifiers, but you're right, that's too much.
Yeah.
Too bad. There is some synergy with Bonnie and Zygarde GX here, because you're finding Bonnie and you're finding the stadium to discard with Bonnie.
See, there you go. You're so smart.
I just read the comments section.
Oh, you can take credit for it. It's okay.
Okay, you're so smart.
Well, thanks. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Well,
Do either
that's
of you
gotta
guys
be
have any
it.
other news at all?
No, not for this.
No, there is new Pikachu and Mimikyu promos coming out, neither of which are really worth talking about. However, the
Pikachu's
art on
cute.
both of them is adorable,
Yeah.
and this is coming from me, and I really dislike Pikachu. And it is, I think, somewhat noteworthy that Pikachu does have Nuzzle for its first attack.
Yes, it does have Nuzzle.
That is all I have in Pokemon Newsland.
There is one big, super important Dead Draw Gaming related piece of news in the TCG world, and that is that the official website for the Madison Pokemon Regionals here in Wisconsin, the website's live. The official website is up, and you can start getting registered.
Yeah, and actually, kind of speaking on that, we did get some pretty interesting news coming from that also. So, in addition to regular prizing for all players who make top 32, Top Cut Events will sponsor the following prizing. Any trading card game master advancing to Day 2 in Swiss will receive the same cash prizing as anyone listed in 17 to 32.
That's right. So let's say Madison, breaks the 1,000 master level that we've seen in the past few regionals, and we have a top 38. Before, in these other regionals, 33 through 38 just got championship points, right? And that kind of blows because you're playing all that extra Pokemon and then you don't even get paid. What Jimmy Ballard and Top Cut Events are doing is they are going to pay you out of their own pocket for making Day 2, and that's fantastic, I think.
And in addition to that, if the event reaches 800 players in the Trading Card Game Masters division, all TCG Masters players reaching 19 match points on Day 1 or more will receive a minimum of 36 booster packs.
Wow. So this one's worth going to.
Jimmy's really going all out.
Yeah, I think I'll
on
play
making sure the players that do well really get their money's worth. And I think that... Oh, yeah? You're going to play?
I think so. I don't think I have anything going on.
We totally don't have anything else going on. So, but I think that Jimmy really took a lot of the feedback from the OhanaCon last year to heart. And I will be the first person to tell you over and over again that there's not a better TO in the country than Jimmy Ballard. We are huge Jimmy Ballard fans here at DDG.
That's right.
And this is honestly just solidifying anything that anyone might have bad to say about him. He literally took I don't know. Jimmy's awesome. Is what I'm trying to say.
He constantly pushes the envelope, and he's constantly investing back into the community, which is important and pretty rare to see, especially from somebody at his current level. I think he does a fantastic job, and there's a couple other people who I think are excellent, but there's a lot of people who wouldn't even consider doing what he does because it takes out of their profits and the work that they put in, and Jimmy's just doing this to continue to invest back into the community and help the community grow, and I think it's, like you said, it's a fantastic thing. It's a great thing to say. Madison falling on the dates that it typically falls, being the last regional usually in the United States, usually definitely in the United States. Isn't Mexico usually the week after or the same week? One of the two.
I think last year was Mexico City after, yeah.
Yeah, the Midwest typically has the higher attendance. That's why you saw Memphis and Collinsville and Dallas continue to just kind of destroy records because the centrally located states are easier to get to for East Coast and West Coast. But since Madison falls so late in the calendar year, a lot of people are already like, okay, well, I'm not going to go to Madison and internationals because the chances of me qualifying for Worlds is so much slimmer now, or I'm already in a position where I'm not going to get to top 16, so there's not much of a point in me going just to risk getting to Day 2 and not getting anything extra. So this kind of helps grow the game.
Totally. 100% agree. I think Jimmy's doing everything he can for all of the participants as well as all of the vendors and everyone involved. He's doing everything he can to get as many people through the door. So kudos to Jimmy. You're the man. I think that's it for news.
Excellent. Well, why don't we move on? We just had a huge weekend of Pokemon. We had a regional event kind of locally in Collinsville, and then we had a regional event in Malmo. And Dan was at the one in Collinsville, so I'll kind of let him take the mic here and talk about his experience down in Collinsville and what he saw.
Yeah, so just about just a quick little experience thing about it. First of all, I just said a bunch of super nice things about Jimmy Ballard. I just want it to be known that Vince Kreckler, the TO for St. Louis, also does a very good job at running events. Another fantastic TO in the Pokemon community. He did another wonderful job. The tournament, for the most part, I believe, was on time. It ran a little bit later. I believe it got over around 9:30, which is still a pretty good time, I feel like. Overall, it was very well run. The venue did seem a little small. And as far as I know, it's the venue they've used for the past few years. And maybe it's time to upgrade. But I did also play in this event, which is the first time I have played since NAIC. I ended up playing a Duskmane Necrozma Magnezone list. Had a lot of fun with it. Unfortunately, didn't do super hot, but it was still super fun. We had, I think, 12 Team DDG members there, including myself.
Oh,
So roughly half the team.
including yourself. You're so cute.
I was honorary Team DDG member.
You're right.
for
You
one
were.
day.
You were. It's all good.
For one day. And Team DDG did have one person make day two, and Ryan Bruckner from the AM team. Unfortunately, he was unable to hit that top 32 spot, but there was 46 people playing in day two.
That is bonkers. It's like straight crazy.
So that's I think there was 38 in Dallas, so 8 more people than we've ever had in a day two before for a regional event.
I did not think we would see nearly 50 player day 2 this year. I mean, I thought it might happen eventually, but I didn't think it'd be this year.
Well, it's kind of crazy because we definitely did not there was not that many more players in St. Louis than there was in Dallas. And we added 8 more people to day 2.
Was the tie rate higher here? Like, is that part of it?
That you'd have to ask either Carlos or one of the Shemansky robots, I think. So
you said
that I'm not certain on.
So you didn't play one of the super standout decks of the weekend. What were some of the good decks?
Like, honestly, I think Duskmane was the most played deck there, just in terms of sheer numbers. However, it did not do very well. Gosh, give me a second. I know I posted everything. So I ended up playing against, only 2. I only played through 7 rounds. I dropped after 7 rounds, but I only played 2 of those rounds against a deck that played Zoroark. But there was lots of Garb. There was lots of Glycopod, lots of Buzzwole, just lots of all that kind of stuff around me. So,
speaking of Glycopod, I pulled up the Limitless TCG page here for Collinsville. Ian Robb took it home first place with his Zoroark Glycopod. So congrats to you, Ian. That was an intense game. Did you guys watch the stream?
I was driving as it was happening. So
you weren't watching it?
Austin was telling me what was happening.
Okay.
As it was happening, but I was not watching it myself.
I did not see the finals. I watched most of day 1 and had a lot going on Sunday, so I only got to watch a little bit of day 2. But
so I guess, what were your thoughts on day 1 stream? Because I didn't get to watch any of it because I was playing, but I saw a lot of feedback.
I mean, the commentary was good. The equipment wasn't great. So the stream itself, round 1, wasn't streamed because they were running through some technical difficulties. Round 2, they got everything going okay. There was some bad feedback on the mics that they used, and the camera was fine at the beginning of round 2, and then they changed the layout, I guess, in the middle of round 2, and then it was like super. I think what they originally had was they had it on set to like autofocus or something, and they turned that off and didn't adjust the camera accordingly. So
Hmm.
it ended up being like a super high shot of the field where you couldn't really make out any of the cards. The glare was terrible. I think as the day went on, the quality was overshadowed by the commentary, so the stream actually turned out to be okay because the commentary was there. I think Jeff did a great job. I think Kirk did a great job. I think Chris did a pretty good job, especially for all of them, their first time commentating. But I think the stream definitely could use a little bit of a cleanup as far as presentation goes, and the airtime in between rounds can be super annoying because there's a lot of dead airtime. So just looking at a blank screen, and then there was no mods in the chat, so the chat was basically screaming and spamming and doing all sorts of different inappropriate things, saying whatever that they wanted to. I mean, you want to keep it decently family friendly for a game like this, so that was kind of annoying as well. I had to just make it full screen and not pay attention to the chat at all, so that way I didn't have to get lost in everything that was being said.
I'd have to say that was also one of the most annoying things for me was the chat. Like, it was extra. Once people realized that it was unmodded, it got really bad for a while. It made me not want to have chat turned on for when we stream.
We will have chat turned on.
But it made me not want to have chat turned on. You know what I mean?
Sure. So I definitely don't disagree. What we will probably end up doing is having it in slow mode plus having it moderated.
I like that.
And the good part about us is that me, not regularly streaming now, but as someone who has regularly streamed and someone who does still stream things that aren't just events like this, I already have people who moderate my chat. So I can kind of schedule and coordinate with them to do that kind of thing. Where someone like Critical Hit, as far as I know, doesn't regularly stream.
Yeah, I definitely think that, I mean, as far as like streaming goes for our case, there's a lot of stuff in the preparation point that is going to need to be ironed out prior to the event. And I don't by any means think that the stream is going to be perfect, but I do think that watching a lot of streams and paying attention to a lot of things and paying attention to a lot of feedback, there are quite a few things that I would like to do differently than streams that I've seen in the past. So I think there's a lot of ideas that we have collectively and that we've been provided with as well. And I think a lot of it just boils down to proper production of the actual stream, having the equipment necessary to produce a good stream and having consistent attention that's given to the stream from the production crew, because it takes a lot more than just the commentators. So having a good setup is obviously key.
Yep, absolutely. All three of us have already been pouring some time into figuring out what we're going to do, lining up. Like Dan's been working pretty hard, finding our perfect commentators. I've put some effort into logistics, and Danny's been working extremely hard finding advertisers. So we're all putting in the time now, and I can't imagine we don't put out the best darn product we can. It's going to be a blast. Holy moly, I'm so excited.
Agreed. Just to go over the tournament a little bit more in depth, there was a lot of interesting meta shifting going on, and I know there'll be more talk about this in a little bit here with Natalie as she talks about her experience and her drive all the way to second place at the biggest regional tournament ever, which is fantastic. But what did you guys think about like the meta as a whole? Because it was so much more diverse than what I guess I expected it to be, even though it wasn't super impacted by Ultra Prism.
I think it was definitely interesting, especially because we really saw kind of more support cards for decks than actual decks come out from Ultra Prism, right? Where we cards like Cynthia were really good, and you kind of didn't see the meta change too terribly much from Oceania, even though we really did have a brand new format. Now, there were definitely cards that came out that did well, but I don't think Ultra Prism did as much to the format as what people were thinking it was going to do. It did sort of bring back decks like SP Garb, which is something that we weren't really expecting. I think was something that's been good before coming back. Saw that a bunch in day one. I'm not certain off the top of my head how many made day two, but obviously we saw a lot of Glycopod, we saw a lot of Zoroark, we saw a lot of Buzzwole and Lycanroc. Kind of the cards that we've been used to seeing since basically Memphis happened. So,
Yeah, and I think the big thing that I wanted to kind of address is, I mean, while Zoroark was still super relevant and super prevalent as far as the meta goes, especially in day two, which I can only go off numbers since I wasn't actually there experiencing it. But there was also some interesting deck choices that actually made day two. Like we saw a decent amount of Vikabulu in day two, even though it didn't do well in day two, it still made day two. Andrew Wambolt did bring in a Glaceon variant with Garbodor. That did decent. He made day two. There was a Ho-Oh deck in day two. There was a couple of Espeon Garbodor, and then I think there was an Espeon Garbodor also with Metal that was in day two. There was a Zoroark Weavile that made day two. There was Quad Hoopa. There was a Registeel Necrozma. Kevin Baxter played Passimian to day two, which is really cool. Passimian's not a terrible meta call when you're going to see a lot of Zoroark running around. But then there was also, the typical Buzzwole Lycanroc, Buzzwole Garbodor, Zoroark Glycopod, like Dan said, and then different Zoroark decks in there. There's also a Raichu deck, Raichu GX deck that made day two. Didn't end up doing well in day two, but again, to beat out well over 1,000 players to make day two is super interesting. And then Gustavo Wada played Volcanion. I know that down south they seem to love their Volcanion decks, and he played Volcanion to a top 8 finish, which is really cool. But yeah, it was super diverse, and I think that says a lot about the format and where it is continuing to advance. I do want to touch on Malmo a little bit because it's so crazy to me how different, things here can be from over there. So just going over at Malmo, if it's okay if I just jump into that right away.
Yeah.
The top 2 decks at Malmo, 1v2, was actually a Zoroark Weavile mirror match in the finals. So Zoroark Weavile actually won. I was talking to Caleb a little bit earlier because he played Zoroark Weavile, and I was curious to see how different the lists were, and they were a lot different. Caleb's list was a lot different than the list that won Malmo and the list that took second at Malmo. But historically, well, what you would think Weavile would have a bad matchup against Buzzwole Lycanroc, but it ended up beating Buzzwole Lycanroc in top 8. And there were 3 Buzzwole Lycanroc, 2 Zoroark Glycopods. There was a Ho deck, and then the 2 Zoroark Weavile decks, and those 2 basically took it down. So I think it's interesting to see, you had this huge international tournament last week where Gardevoir and Zoroark won, and then you fast forward 1 week, and there's not even a Zoroark Gardevoir in the top 8.
You're right. It's just weird. Like that was my call. I thought Gardevoir was going to come in and take it, and nah. Malmo, the highest Gardevoir, was 10th place, and then Collinsville, the highest Gardevoir, was all the way down in 15th.
So I want to go back a little bit when Danny was talking about day 2 in St. Louis, and he talked about Kevin Baxter's Passimian Mew. I took a very hard L. A very hard L to that deck in round 7 in St. Louis, which actually is right before I ended up in round 6, which was 1 round before I dropped. Carl Shrew was piloting that list, and I just it made me feel pretty bad about myself. So
Passimian.
That's
just nuts.
It's super hard. Like Duskmane is good, but it's really hard to be able to keep up with having to take 6 actual knockouts versus 3, maybe 4. Like doing 200, doing the double the amount of damage you have to do to knock out a Passimian, is not that fun.
I hear you there. Okay.
Nice, but you had a good experience, Bill?
Absolutely.
That's good. Excellent. Well, we'll see how the meta continues to shift. I wouldn't be surprised if Zoroark Weavile started to get a lot more play with its success in Malmo, and I think a lot of people are interested in the deck. Our It's one of our more popular YouTube videos when Caleb did a video on it not too long before Collinsville. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that gets tweaked moving forward. But with that, I don't know. Do you want to do like a intro now to your special guest?
Please.
Yeah. All right, so up next, you guys, we are going to have our interview with Natalie Shampay. She unable to record with us tonight as we record at our normal time. We will be recording with her tomorrow. It will be stitched into the episode that's coming up. So we'll jump right into that real quick, you guys, and enjoy it. All right, guys. So Darrin and I are now sitting down with the runner-up from this past weekend's regional tournament in St. Louis, Natalie Shampay. Natalie, how are you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
We're great. Thank you so much for jumping on, taking time out of your day to talk with us about how your weekend went. But before we get into that, how about you just go ahead and introduce yourself for us?
Hi. So I play in Ohio in the Akron northern area. I've been playing for about 5-ish years. I took the past 2 seasons off, so I'm just getting back into things this year. So I haven't really played since Boston Worlds 2015. It's like I've been around, but I haven't really been at it since then. I'm really excited to be here. It was really nice to have my breakout performance this year. So hopefully I can follow that up a little bit and not look like a one-hit wonder. So
awesome. Well, let's talk about how everything went in St. Louis. Obviously second place at the biggest regional ever is a pretty big accomplishment. Can you just kind of give us like an overview of how everything went for you? Just basically how the tournament was run. Just your overall weekend without like specifically going over your deck and everything, because we'll talk about that in just a second.
Okay. It went great. It was about an 8-hour drive. We got in pretty late, but we already knew what deck we were going to play. My friends and I had been working on this deck for a while. And so we pretty much just had to like pick the last card or two and just submit it. And so I submitted my list at like right when we got there. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to bed. We'll see how this works out. My tournament went pretty well. I hit I hit a couple rough matchups, but I ended up finishing the day 8-1, going in at 5th seed into day 2. So can't really complain about that at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Such a good day 1. And I remember reading when you had posted how everything had went. I think it was round 6, 7, and 8. You took a game 1 loss in all 3 of those rounds.
Yes.
So what was going like game or round after round after round to game 1 loss? Like what kind of goes through your mind when you're so close to kind of losing where you're at?
Right. Well, at that point I was I think 4-1, 5-1. It was my like round 6, 7, 8 maybe. Yeah, I think you're right. It was very very nerve wracking. A lot of it was a couple different. I remember the first time that happened. It started with one of my Buzz Rock matchups, and that's a scary matchup to lose game 1. So I was pretty nervous. Every time I lost game 1, I'd be like, all right, this is it. It's over. Especially considering going first in the Buzz Rock matchup is huge. So it was pretty nerve wracking, but I ended up rallying it back all 3 times. I ended up finishing my win-in was with Yoshi and his Zoroark Weavile deck. And I had to read his cards. I had to read a couple things. I kind of knew what it did, but I wanted to make sure. So he was like, I thought you knew my tricks. And I was like, no, not exactly. I have to read these cards a little bit. And I lost game 1. I knew he played Zoroark Break, but he ended up hitting me with a surprise foul play absorption. And that lost me the game. I didn't bank on him having the cards he needed in his hand. It was like a 5-card hand and he just like had it. So that was rough, but then I ended up running it back the next 2 games. And that was my winning in. And it was a little scary. But it was a little nerve wracking. Yeah. Going into every round with a round 1 loss. Or game 1 loss. But I ended up never getting close to tying either. So that was nice. The deck's pretty aggressive and fast. So I think I went to time 1 time in all my 15 rounds. So
I think that's one thing that I found really impressive watching you on stream, how efficiently you play. Like you're quick. It's awesome.
Yes, I am pretty fast. I've gotten used to that. And I knew the deck pretty well. So I knew what I had to do. And the deck itself was pretty fast, but I'm also pretty good at keeping my pace, I think. So I didn't come close to tying. I think the only time was with versus Rith on my stream game. And we went to time like right as the game finished, I think. I was like the only time I got even close.
Wow, and that's something that is kind of crazy because I know one of the cool things about using Arcanine Labs for a lot of these is once you get towards the end of the rounds, it'll tell you how many rounds went to time,
right,
or how many ties there were, and it was pretty common to see that number hovering around 20%. So,
right,
not doing that, even like doing that 0 times throughout 15 rounds is pretty huge, I think.
Right.
So.
Yeah, my only tie was an ID. So it was like, we ended up deciding to ID in game 3. We didn't have a lot of time left and wanted to just go with it. We might have been able to finish that game though, so I'm not sure. But otherwise, no. My 14 rounds that I played all the way out, I should say, didn't tie.
So I want to ask you about that too, because I believe that was your ID with Igor, correct?
Yes, it was.
And he ended up bubbling out of top 8.
He did.
When you guys decided to ID, I'm guessing it was under the assumption that he was also going to be getting into top 8.
No, well, he was the one who offered it. He offered it. We were going into game 3 and there was like 10 minutes left or something like that. And we just decided he knew his resistance wasn't very good. Mine was better. But I don't know, maybe he wasn't confident in winning that last game. I'm not sure. He offered it and we just decided to take it. I wasn't comfortable going into, it was Zoroark Golisopod, which is like my hardest matchup. Mm-hmm. And I was going second. And that's really bad for me in that matchup. It really matters who goes first. And so I decided to take it. I decided to take the chance. I knew my resistance was really good. So I figured if any 34s were to make it, it was probably going to be me. And I ended up being the highest 34, I'm pretty sure.
I believe you're correct.
Yeah, I was. Yeah. I was. There was 7 and 8, 7th and 8th seed got in at 34, and it was me and Joey Rudiger, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So yeah.
So with that, I guess why don't you kind of tell us? Because I don't think we've said it yet. Most people should already know that you what you were playing, but just let us know what you were playing. Kind of the reason that you chose it. And you don't have to give me your full list because it's pretty easy to look up and find at this point. But just kind of some of the different card choices that you had come up with.
So I played a Buzzwole Buzzwole Garbodor with no rainbows, no Trash Lance, just a 2/2 Garbotoxin and a 2/2 Carbink Break Line. And we played Max Elixir, so it was a lot like Buzzrock, but with Carbink instead of Lycanroc and Garbodor instead of Octillery. And we played 2 Parallel and Nest Balls instead of Bridget, so it was a very aggressive and fast version of the deck. We came to this conclusion. It was me and Andrew Mahone and Riley Holbert mostly playing. We were testing one weekend, and we were running Buzzwole Lycanroc against some of its bad matchups and like some of its close matchups, and it was just getting beat up, like just ruined. Like we kept losing with it, getting worried about playing the deck. And we didn't want to play the traditional Buzzwole Garb because of its inconsistencies. It's just, it dead draws a lot, and it's got rainbows, and you don't have Max Elixir. You can't just get off a quick absorption or a quick knuckle impact a lot of the time. So we ended up being like, well, what if we put Max Elixirs in and take out the Trash Lance, use Carbink, because Andrew played a 1/1 Carbink in his Dallas expanded list, and that Carbink was really good. So we tried that out, and it was doing really well. It was actually beating Buzzrock almost every time. And I ended up going 5-0 against Buzzrock in the day. I think like my final record with all three games included was like 10-3 versus Buzzrock. And so we ended up going with that for mostly those reasons. And it was it was a Garbodor deck, so it had some inconsistencies, but we played so many supporters that it really was, it didn't dead draw as much as a lot of other Garbodor decks did.
So I've got your list pulled up here on Limitless TCG, and what I'm interested in hearing about is the Zygarde EX. Did this thing come in clutch for you?
Absolutely, actually, yes. I was not too sure about the Zygarde. I was probably the biggest doubter in Zygarde out of all of our group. I was like, no, he sucks. He's not very good. Get him out of here. He can only do 100 out. It was most of the reasons we kept it was for Mew EX. It was and Mewtwo. It was pretty good against Mew EX and Mewtwo, but the only problem was that it's not good against those in the Golisopod matchup, which is what really matters. But we still decided to keep it for a couple different reasons. It was nice to have another big attacker. Like that was that spot was either going to be like a rescue stretcher, a fourth buzzwole, or a watch and learn Sudowoodo was kind of like our three things that we were throwing around. And but what really swung it was it really helps versus Greninja. And so we were like, you know what, let's keep it, see how it goes. And
Nice.
I ended up using it, and it also helps versus Espeon Garb, which is another matchup we were worried about. And I ended up going positive versus Espeon Garb also. I played 3 of them. And having an attacker that's not weak to Espeon Garb is pretty nice. It's not good when you started in that matchup though. I lost a game because of that. They can just sit there and confuse you. And I remember at one point I float stoned, retreated it, and was going to build it up later. He just brought it up again and confused it again, field blowered off my float stone. I was like, cool.
Oh, man.
But yeah, I was like, all right, he knows what I'm doing. He knows what my tricks are here. And so it ended up being really useful. Like I didn't use it a whole lot, but every game that I did, it probably won me that game.
Nice. Very cool. Well, I love this list, man. Awesome.
So
Thank you.
speaking of the list, I have to ask, because obviously, we're going to be a little bit biased here. But did the list you guys decide to play have anything to do with the list that Team DDG members Frank and Caleb played in Oceania?
Well, we did, kind of put the thought into Buzzwole Garb, but not the Rainbows version, not the Trash Lunch version, because of, how strong we watched, Frank on one game, just like not really do anything, but still win because of Garbodor. And we were like, yeah, what if we do that? But, like take the Rainbows out, make it a little more consistent. And that was pretty much, we had thrown around that idea around. I never liked the Trash Lunch version. I played against it at a couple times at Cups with Buzzwole Lycanroc and just ran it over every time because you could just like not play items and be fine. And we were kind of sketched out by it, but we were like, maybe we should just play, Buzzwole Garb. And we ended up doing the Max Elixir version, trying that out for a spin, and it was ended up being really good. And our biggest concern going into that, besides Espeon Garb, was the Rainbow, the traditional version. We were worried about that matchup. It was pretty sketchy. But we didn't end up really seeing any of it. I don't know how many people played it, but I don't think any of my group played it at all. I sat next to it a couple times, but I never ended up hitting any. I played a lot more Espeon Garb than anything else.
Cool.
Very interesting. So, I guess, can you kind of go through? I know we talked a little bit about some of them already, but just some of the different matchups that you had throughout the day, and what were the more difficult ones that you had? I know you only took 1 loss going into day 2, so
Yeah.
But just kind of anything that
Absolutely.
surprised you with the deck as you were playing through in some of your different matchups, or anything a little bit different that you ended up hitting?
Well, the Weavile Zoroark was the one deck that I wasn't prepared for. Like I knew it was going to be a thing, but I wasn't expecting to hit it at all. Really, we didn't really test for it, but I figured it out. Just having the weakness advantage was good, but Yoshi has a lot of tricks up his sleeves.
Absolutely.
It was a bit of there's some surprises there that I had to deal with, but everything kind of went as expected. The only thing that really surprised me was how not bad the Espeon Garbodor matchup was. We figured it was just going to be an auto loss that we had to take. We figured we might be able to squeak out a game because it's inconsistent. But honestly, I would put it closer to 50-50. I ended up playing 3 of them, and I lost 1 series to 1, and then I beat the other 2. And you can really afford to sit back and just kind of play really slow, not play your items, because they don't do a lot of damage. They have Espeon. But if you can get a quick absorption and then follow up by not playing a lot of items, it goes pretty well. Let's see, I wrote it down. I went 5-3 total versus it. And one of my losses was a donk. I got donked by Espeon Garb, which takes a couple turns. I started 2 Carbink and a supporterless hand. I just, drew past, switched between my Carbinks a couple times, but he ended up getting me. And it was a lot closer than I expected. Buzzrock ended up being as good as I expected. We played a lot of it, and we really tested that matchup, and Garbodor was just really strong, and Fury Belt, because a lot of them don't play Field Blower anymore. The Fury Belt really mattered a lot. And so like I said, I went 5-0 versus Buzzrock. And I think the rest of my crew did okay against it. I know Andrew took a loss to Riff. But I think that was pretty much it. Bulu, I beat Bulu 2-0. That was not very surprising. One of them only played 2 Field Blower. The other one played 3, but I just still ran him over. Yeah, Zorak Glisspot was my toughest matchup all day, and I don't think any of our group really went positive versus it at all. All my games went to game 3 with it, but it's just so close that like if anything, you miss a beat at any point, you just lose. So and then going first in that matchup is probably the most important out of going first in any matchup. And a lot of time, I think I lost the flip on a lot of them. So admittedly we didn't test it a whole lot. We just kind of assumed it was going to be similar to the Buzz Rock matchup. But I feel like there wasn't a whole lot I could do. It ended up just being, probably my worst one all day. And that was what I lost to in the finals too.
I was watching some of your stream, and I did watch your finals match, and I have to say, everyone was rooting for you, and that turnaround win for Ian was out of nowhere.
Right.
How is that difficult? To be so close. I don't know if this is a hurtful question or not, but
no.
Like, how do you as a really good Pokemon player deal with a close loss like that?
It's okay. It's part of the game. Even though I was, from the looks of it on the game, running Ian over game 3, my hand, I had, after my last supporter, I had nothing. And my board was very vulnerable. I knew that I just had to keep going and hope that I would rip an energy or a supporter off my prizes or my top decks. Because if at any point he top decked out of that, I was going to be in trouble. And he did. And I needed one more turn. And the one turn, I think the one thing that I'm back and forth about, I started Lele both games that I lost. Game 1, I prized the other Lele. So that stunk. And then game 3, I sycamored it away, just being aggressive, trying to draw as many cards as possible, and ended up leaving myself with a dead hand. And there was one turn I had my last energy in hand and no supporter, and I decided to attach it to my Buzzwole and Knuckle Impact, his Lele that was attacking me, because if I didn't, it would knock me out and I would have nothing, and I would be resorting to a card bank. And right. I kind of go back and forth on it. I feel like I might have wanted to hold it, but I didn't want to let him get any more ahead than, and I was assuming that off of my prizes, I was going to get 2 prizes and another top deck, I would at least get an energy. Didn't. So it was kind of a gamble. I don't know if I would have done it again. I really don't know. I'd have to think about it and watch the video again, but it was, it hurts being so close, but at the end of the day, it wasn't a very good matchup. I also definitely savaged my way out of top 8. So probably that was karma. I got ended 2 and ripped Guzma strong for the game. I was on the back foot that whole game, so that was, it was it's come back to me, I guess. It disappointing, but I'm still really happy with my my finish, and it happens. I feel like at some point, you can't be too mad about it.
No, I think
that's awesome.
It sounds kind of weird, but one thing to remember is that every time there's been a champion, there's been a runner-up.
Yeah.
So, there's been a lot of people that have kind of had, this is the same thing that we went through. But what was sort of your mindset going into top 8 after such an amazing run day 1 and a really good run day 2? Kind of going into top 8. At that point, what everyone's playing, when you sit down, what you're going to be playing against.
Right.
Round 1, I believe you played against Volcanion, if I'm not mistaken.
I did. I played against Gustavo. I remember going into that matchup, I was asking somebody about his deck, what was in his deck, because I didn't know. And somebody's like, yeah, he does play a one of Ho-Oh and a Kiawe, but he doesn't use it very much. Well, game 1, he starts the one of Ho-Oh and starts the one of Kiawe in his hand. And just, I was like, oh, all right, there it goes. And that game, I ended up, and he also had a Max Elixir and attach on the bench, so he had 6 energy in play, turn 1 going first. I was like, oh, all right. Nice. It was rough. I actually almost pulled that game out still, but I lost that game. Game 2, he didn't get off to as nearly as high of as explosive of a start as he did in game 1, and I was able to win. In game 3, I was on the back burner the whole time, but I turned it around. I was able to chase his energy down a little bit, and then that ended 2. That won me the game. I didn't have it in hand. He ended me, and I ripped it. So I got pretty lucky there. My mindset, I was super happy to be finally break through. I didn't think I was even going to be able to make it through top 8 because my day 2 matchups were a lot worse than my day 1 matchups. There were a lot of decks out there I didn't want to see. Let's see, I wrote it down. I played an Espeon Garb. I played a Zoroark Glisspot right off the bat, then an Espeon Garb, then a Zoroark Garbodor, back to back. And those are 3 matchups I don't really want to see. And so, I knew my field was a little less easy in day 2. So I wasn't sure what I was going to be able to pull off. And so I was really happy about going into top 8. And then when I won, I assumed that I was going to be playing another Glisopod, and I ended up getting Pierce, who beat Russell with his Zoroark Lycanroc. And I asked somebody if he was playing Mew or Mewtwo, and they told me both. I was like, oh, didn't assume that was going to go very well. So, I was just happy with where I had gotten, and I was, I wasn't really I wasn't really super confident going into my top 8 match and then further. So I'm very happy with how I did, and very relieved that I got that far considering everything.
And I was in St. Louis, and I actually had the pleasure of watching you win your top 8 match, kind of standing off to the side. And just seeing the amount of people that you had around you cheering you on and, being super excited for you as you won. I didn't catch top 4 of the finals, but just watching you win that top 8 match and seeing all those people around you was super cool. So again, congratulations for all that.
Thank you.
So realistically, the only other question I guess I have for you, and this has been a pretty big topic in the game for at least over the past year and maybe even a little bit longer.
Right.
But what do you think that, or do you think there maybe is anything at all with you doing second, and how it maybe could change the landscape for competitive women in the Pokemon trading card game?
I think, it's a step forward at least. I think looking around, I looked at, there's this document that was made by a few people that have been in the game a long time that have regionals first and second place from all the way back from the early 2000s. And I remember looking at that one day and seeing there were 2 women in Masters in the North American regionals that had ever made the finals, and it was Taylor Mitchell in 2010 and Christy Britton a few years ago. And so I was like, wow, that's, pretty crazy. Only 2 women in history, in Masters history, to make the finals. And then, so as far as I'm concerned, I think I'm the 3rd in recorded history. I don't know if anybody knows any more, just in North America and Masters. So that's pretty significant, I think. And I remember being I think I started when I was 15, just going to tournaments, being 15 and being a young girl, being surrounded by a bunch of older men and just feeling very alone. There's not a lot of people to relate to. It's kind of, it's just intimidating, really. And I think it matters a lot to see women playing, and just being just like anybody else out there playing, doing well. I know I had a couple little girls come up to me and, thank me and stuff like that, which was really sweet. And I think it means a lot for especially newer women who might be intimidated and might be feeling ostracized or something like that, to see other women doing well, not just me, like Serena and Christy and all them. I think it matters a lot.
I think one really cool thing, I don't know if you saw this, but earlier this year, I think it was at Dallas, the top 4 for juniors was all girls for the
all
video
girls.
game.
I did see that. It was amazing.
Yeah, that was so cool. So I love that we're finally starting to become a little more diverse as a card game. It's not just a boys club, and right. Yeah, so I think that it's really great. The more we get, the more diverse we can get.
Absolutely. And, I think it matters, just representation matters. The more newer players see it, newer women especially, who might want to get into the game, it might not seem as foreign and weird if they try to get into it. And, it's in the grand scheme of things, the game is pretty welcoming. And I don't have a whole lot of issues, but every once in a while you get those comments, you get the, you get some stuff, it just happens, but it's not too bad considering everything. And I think it matters to have a lot of us up there and playing and, acting like it's no different than the guys, I guess.
Awesome. That's all I got for questions.
No, I guess that's all I have as well. I guess the other thing is, what regionals can we expect to see Natalie at for the rest of the year?
Well, definitely Charlotte and definitely Toronto. if need be, Roanoke, Virginia, and Madison for sure. But I'm at 335 points now, so I just really need some league cups. But I still love traveling to regional, so I'll probably be going to as many as I can. See how those go.
Well, if you're in Madison, we'll definitely make sure to come find the Dead Draw Gaming booth because we'll
Absolutely.
basically be running that regionals.
Nice.
So,
I'll be watching the stream if not,
and we'll be running that too. So, but anyways, I guess at this point we can kind of go ahead and give you a minute or so. At this point, go ahead and just tell us where to follow you on Twitter or whatever kind of plugs or shout outs or anything else that you may have. You can give them to us now.
Okay, absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter at Natakazam, Natakazam, like Alakazam, but with Natalie in it. Yeah. And shout out to my best friends and my crew, my testing partners. We have Andrew Mahone, Riley Holbert, Will Mantho. We all played the same deck. And just all of my friends, honestly. It was really great to see everybody cheering me on and everything like that. It made me super happy, and it was, I just think about it, it makes me like almost tear up. And my late boyfriend, Nicholas Bailey, he pretty much made me the player I am today. I used his match all weekend, and I'm gonna probably use that till it falls apart. So definitely, I'm glad I'm back into it now, and it's been a few years. But shout out to everybody who supported me through this.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for joining us today. It means a lot that you were able to take,
Absolutely.
time out of your day to sit down with Darrin and I and talk about how your weekend went. Again, congratulations on a second place finish this last weekend at the St. Louis Pokemon Regionals. Good luck to you on getting that World's invite. I'm positive that you'll get it.
Just gotta put it in.
Yeah. Well, hope to see you. Maybe we can get you in for an interview after your next breakout performance.
Oh man, that would be crazy. Thank you very much for having me. Have a nice night, you guys.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Thank you so
too.
much. All right, you guys. So that was our interview with Natalie. Thanks again to Natalie so much for having her on. Always great to talk to her. And congratulations again to her for being the runner-up in St. Louis Regionals. So with that, I guess, you guys, now is time to jump into our weekly top 5.
Yeah.
You guys ready for this? This one was almost as hard as last week's for me.
I struggled coming up with 5.
Just finding
What?
5.
I mean, to me, like they're all kind of. I just kind of put them all in the same. I guess there's like 1 or 2 clear cut. These are my favorites, and then a bunch that I'm like, these are okay.
I understand. I get you. Well, I'll go ahead and hop in here. My number 5 honorary place here is Bruxish.
It definitely had to be in there.
Yeah.
Memes. I like memes. My number 5 is Galisopod.
My number 5 is Alolan Ninetales.
Ooh.
Nice.
Alolan
I can do that,
Ninetales
right?
is not a water type.
Ice.
What are you talking about? It's got a water energy.
All right. Well, we'll take it, I guess.
There's no ice energy.
Got me there.
Get wrecked, Dan.
All right.
Okay, all right. My next water type Pokemon is Politoed.
Oh, I knew that was one of them. My number 4 is Omastar.
My number 4 is Poliwrath.
Whoa. Poliwrath was on my list, but I didn't quite make the cut.
He's a good guy. Number 3 is going to go to the Greninja.
My number 3 is Kingdra.
Oh.
My number 3 is OG Squirtle.
Cute. Number 2.
Super cute.
Number 2 is my OG water type, Vaporeon.
My number 2 is OG as my list gets, and that is Feraligatr.
I knew that would be on your list.
Mm-hmm. I bet you guys
My
don't know what my number one is.
No, we don't know.
I don't. My number 2 is Empoleon.
Nice. And my number 1, to no one's surprise, Ludicolo.
I knew it. My number one. My number one, to hopefully no one's surprise, is Kyogre.
Nice. My number 1 is Suicune.
I knew it.
Called it.
Knew it this whole time.
No, that's awesome.
Why did you know that? Because
What?
it's a legendary dog.
It's because you love Pokemon that don't have EX cards.
Yep.
Why
All of them.
doesn't Suicune have an EX card? What is up
Probably
with
never
that?
gonna get one now.
Never getting one.
Well, I don't know. Maybe they'll bring back EX again in like 10 years, like they did.
Right. Possible.
Who knows? Guys, I had 11 honorable mentions.
Don't do this. I only had one. You get to pick one. I'll pick one. Wash Rotom. I love Wash Rotom, but I didn't include him because I had to include Bruxish. So.
All right. I guess my honorable mention then would be Basculin.
Really?
Dude, don't say really like that. Basculin's super cool.
Why is
Really?
it?
At least I didn't say an ice type.
There is no such thing as an ice energy.
Why? But for real, why do you like Basculin? It's just a fish.
Dude, so is Bruxish, except it has lips.
Fine, I'll change my number 5 to my honorable mention, and I'll put my new number 5 as Lapras.
Technically, Lapras is an ice type too.
Technically, Lapras was OG.
Yeah,
They didn't have ice type back then.
What? Yes, they did.
What is this? Do we even do a Pokemon podcast?
Nope, all they had was water and electric and fire and fighting and psychic.
Yeah, no grass
There were
Pokemon. Not even
no
the
grass
first
Pokemon.
And grass.
Doug Trio doesn't exist. Raticate is not real. Dragonite's fake. I love it.
I think next week we have to do ground type Pokemon.
Oh boy. I mean,
Yep.
yeah, we
And
could
then
just make our
Danny,
top
he'll have
5
no
super
idea, he'll have
easy.
no idea what to do.
Oh
Let's
my
make our
God,
top
you
5
guys are
super
so
easy for the
fucking
next
annoying.
16 weeks. I love it.
Dragon types. There's like 20 to choose from.
Top 5 favorite Dragon moves from Gen 1.
I can think of 2 off the top of my head.
There's literally only one.
Is it Dragon? Is Twister not a Dragon move?
Twister wasn't in Gen 1. It's just Dragon Rage. And it only
Dragon
does
Rage.
40 damage. Period.
Interesting.
Moving
No,
on. We gotta
not
move
yet.
on.
We need a water type Glycopod. All right, now we can move.
Oh, dude. We finally got our water type Volcanion, right?
Mm-hmm. Now
Water
it's time for
type
Glycopod.
Glycopod. To be
Lit.
completely honest, I didn't know he was part water type till just when you said that.
Oh yeah,
I had to go down and I had to scroll down and look.
he's a bug in a water. Not even a grass type, Danny.
That's crazy. That's really crazy. Interesting.
Super crazy. And now to a topic that we have not had in a long time. So I'm gonna pass the mic over to Danny for this week's edition of the DannyBox.
Okay, so let's get right into it. So I guess I have a little bit of a story to start out with, and this is going to be kind of more talking about like productivity as far as it relates to business. I haven't done a DannyBox in a while, and I kind of wanted to do one last week, but we just didn't have the time to do it because there was so much going on. And I'll try and be a little quick because I know this podcast is already going over a little bit, but so there was this research experiment that was done on the East Coast, or on the West Coast, I should say, and basically a bunch of marine biologists took this shark and they put it in a large holding tank and then released a bunch of small bait fish into the tank. And like you would typically expect, the shark saw the fish and swam around and attacked them all and ate them. And that's what a shark does, obviously. So then the marine biologists went and they took a clear fiberglass sheet and put it in the middle of the tank. So then there was 2 different partitions, basically. So they put the shark on one side of the tank and they put the bait on the other side of the tank. So the shark quickly attacked. This time, however, the shark slammed into the fiberglass divider and bounced off. The shark continued to just go at it and try and get the bait, but was not having any luck, obviously, because there's this big fiberglass sheet in the way. So the bait fish just basically swam around unharmed in the second partition. And then after about an hour into the experiment, the shark gave up. So the marine biologists continued to do this over and over again for a couple of weeks. They did it several dozen times, and each time the shark got less aggressive and made fewer attempts to attack these bait fish until eventually the shark just got tired of hitting the fiberglass divider and stopped attacking altogether. So eventually, after a couple of weeks went on, the marine biologists took this fiberglass sheet and removed it completely. And what they did is they released the bait on one side of the tank, and on the other side of the tank, they had the shark without a fiberglass sheet in between. The bait just swam freely, and the shark didn't even bother attacking. It just gave up completely. So because the shark was so busy trying to attack these fish and kept hitting barriers over and over again, it just gave up altogether. And it's kind of relatable to business because it happens all the time, right? Like we fail all the time. And I've talked about failure before. I've talked about setbacks before. And the problem is getting emotionally involved, giving up, and not trying anymore. So like the shark in this story, we believe that because we failed something in the past and because we were unsuccessful in the past with something, we're not going to be successful in that in the future. But you can't have that way of thinking. Like you can't always think that because you failed at something in the past, it's not going to work in the future. You have to retweak your ideas. You have to retweak the way that you're approaching certain situations. So you have to focus on different things. We're constantly like busting our head and trying all these different things, and occasionally you're going to run into failures, and that's okay. Like it's totally acceptable to fail. Like you're going to fail way more than you succeed. The important thing is that you just continue doing stuff. Like deciding what to do is just as important as deciding what not to do. You need to focus on being productive instead of just focusing on being busy. Like everything that you do needs to result in a result producing activity. So we have a lot of stuff that we do on a daily basis, and we have to fine tune our thinking all the time, just like anybody would have to fine tune their thinking. And I kind of relate this to the game of Pokemon, for instance, because there's times when you're going to feel deflated or deterred, or that things aren't going to work out because you worked really hard testing and you went to an event and it didn't go well. And you ended up dropping or getting frustrated and not getting the finish that you wanted. But that doesn't mean that the next event is going to have the same result. You have to fine-tune your thinking and fine-tune your approach and just continue going at it. You're not always going to run into that fiberglass barrier because eventually it's going to be removed. You just have to keep trying to break through it and keep trying to attack it from a different way. Basically, your success occurs when your dreams get bigger than your excuses get. So if you're somebody who really wants to make it big at something, whether it be the Pokemon trading card game, whether it be a trading card game store, a business of some sort, a content provider, whatever the case may be, you're not going to find success until your dreams get bigger than your excuses. Everybody can find excuses. They're all over the place. If you want an excuse from somebody, just ask your friend. Like you can find excuses for anything. But your dreams are what's going to keep you up at night. Your dreams are what's going to keep you moving. Your dreams are what's going to make you break through that fiberglass barrier that's kind of preventing you from getting your bait, so to say. So I just thought it was an interesting story because it kind of ties into what we do on a daily basis as far as figuring out what it is that we need to do to find that result producing activity. And there's going to be a lot of times that we try different things and a lot of times that we fail at different things. But all that we can do is figure out what's going to produce the most results and then focus on that and fine tune different ways to do that. Like in my mind, we are already super successful. We are already millionaires. We just don't have all the money yet. Like we have already made it. We just don't have all the YouTube subscribers yet. We don't have all the Twitch followers yet. We don't have all the partnerships yet. Like we've done what we've accomplished or what we've wanted to accomplish. It just hasn't shown itself yet. So as long as we just keep moving forward and keep fine-tuning ourselves, eventually we're going to attack, and that fiberglass barrier isn't going to be there anymore. And it's all going to come to fruition. And I think that's very, very relevant to anything that you do in life, as long as you have those dreams and those aspirations, and as long as they're bigger than your excuses are. And if they're not, then maybe you need to find a different dream, or a bigger aspiration, because you're not going to hit success until your dreams get bigger than your excuses. So that is this week's DannyBox. I tried to keep it pretty short.
That was good. Holy moly. That was a really good takeaway. I love your dreams have to be bigger than your excuses. That's awesome. That should be on a t-shirt. And and then also we're already millionaires, we just don't have the money. I love that. That's a really good way to think about things.
Perfect. Well, then I think we can move on to the question of the week.
Question of the week.
Darren's about to get signed to Vintage Records.
Nah. Dead Drawers, we have our question of the week from last week. It was all about NAIC, the North American International Championship. This year it's in Columbus, Ohio, but in many previous years it has been in Indianapolis. There's a lot of people that are on one side, a few people on the other, and we just wanted to know where our listeners land on that spectrum. So we asked you, would you prefer Columbus, Indianapolis, or somewhere else entirely? Our first actual response comes from Joshua. He said, I wanted it to be in Indy. My family's closer to there, and it gives me an opportunity to visit and play. Jordan says, I just want to play Pokemon. I don't really care where it's at. Evan replied with, Indy, so I can only have to drive an hour. And that's a great point. Like, Indy is just really close to everything. But, honestly, that's an argument that people closer to Columbus can make as well. So, it's a coin flip right there. Just saying. Zaya responded with, Indy, because it is just a better city and way better convention center. Jason says, Minneapolis can host a Super Bowl. Why not an intercontinental?
I'd be cool with that.
I would also be cool with that. I think we've talked about Minneapolis for potential regionals down the road. Like, why
yeah,
not?
We definitely have.
And let's move on down to Lewis says, NAIC in Chicago. Love the Midwest, but you need to have it in a sweet city. Chicago's Midwest, isn't it?
Yep,
technically.
100%. Yeah.
So that's it for our social media responses. Let's head on over to our Discord channel. Discord channel. Discord channel. Question of the week. There it is. DDG Chris with the response. Unfortunately, he's going to be in Italy for this year's NAIC, but he still had some really good opinion here for us to read. He said, my biased opinion is that it should be in Salt Lake City. We have a huge convention center in downtown that we use for Comic-Con. That would be perfect. We have an international airport, easy to fly into from other countries as well as from all around the US. And it's maybe it's not ideal for US players since they can't really drive there from the East Coast, but it would help suggest the need for more central/mountain area regionals, which is a great point. The mountain area never, ever gets regionals. And finally, good old DLTA Zerthon. Every tournament should be held in Madison, Wisconsin. I love that response. That's perfect.
Agree. There's another one you're missing.
Go ahead and read your own response, Dan.
For whatever reason, Darren doesn't want to read my response. I finally come. Mine just says, personally, I love the move to Columbus. I am in a huge minority here, but Columbus was a lot of fun. I think NAIC should be moved around year to year the same way that Worlds is. Most people have a soft spot for Indy since that's where it's been forever, but in this case, change is a good thing.
I love it. I think
I see absolutely no reason why we can't give different cities around the country sort of a spotlight when it comes to Pokemon. And I think that they should do this like with EUIC or even OCIC or LAIC. Like, why are we keeping these in the same spot every single year?
I think some of it comes down to just logistics. You find a place that works. It just costs money and man hours to find a new place. But I don't disagree, man. I think that moving is a great thing.
Like, bringing those kinds of tournaments to other areas. One, people are going to travel regardless if it's in Columbus or Indy. I have yet to see anyone say that they're not going because it's in Columbus. And you put an event like that in, let's say, Minneapolis, that doesn't have events outside of League Cups, right? No regionals, no nothing.
Mm-hmm.
How many people are in Minneapolis? Millions, literally millions, in the surrounding area.
Yes.
That's a lot of exposure for the game that is not already there.
Yeah, I think Minneapolis would see a pretty big bump in playership. Like, there's already multiple leagues, multiple cups. They had states. Viewership.
It's got an international airport, so it's easy to fly into. It has a huge convention center inside of the Mall of America. Like,
dude,
we've talked about this before. We don't got to do it again, but I'm just being
a ton of
biased,
reasons
like
that it would
Christmas.
work in Minneapolis. Tons of reasons it would work there. Danny, what do you think?
I think the fact that they changed the title of it from national to an international event means that it makes more sense for it to be spread about throughout the United States now. But I enjoyed the fact that it was at a consistent place. I haven't really been able to ever attend an international or national tournament yet, but I liked the fact that it was consistently in Indiana. So I don't know. I'm fine with it being in Indiana.
We already get that with regionals, though, right?
Yeah, but this is a one time a year type thing, whereas there's regionals every few weeks.
Sure, I think that, and I get that, but I almost think that moving it would also promote people like to travel more. Because how many players, like let's say in California, for example, have gotten a chance to play Pokemon in Minneapolis? And then what's the percentage of those players that have played Pokemon in Indiana?
Yeah, I think that's why I said that now that it's changed to international, they changed the name of it to international, I'm fine with it moving to different locations. But yeah. I liked when it was called nationals and it was just in one central spot. But if they're going to rename it to something where it's going to increase attendance from other countries, then it's fine to me, because I don't know what flight structure looks like where it might be cheaper and more cost effective for somebody from the UK to fly into an international airport like Minneapolis rather than Indianapolis.
Sure. I don't know what the airport is like in Indy, I guess, but I can tell you that Indiana is not very fun to drive in.
I've heard that.
You don't like your wheels or your axles or your alignment on your car.
Ooh.
Indiana's a great place to drive.
Throwing shade.
Sorry, it's awful.
Shade cast terrible by the potholes in the highway.
Yep.
We can't see the bottom, but it's there. No,
probably.
So that's it. That's all we got for our question of the week. This week, what is next week's question? Do you guys have something lined up? Otherwise, I got something.
I love it when you have something.
It's a real cop-out. Coming up, we have an event near Anaheim, Costa Mesa, California. It's an expanded event, and I just want to know, will Ultra Prism make a big dent on expanded? What do you think is going to be the big decks going into the next regional event? Super simple question, big cop-out. All right, so that's it. Leave your response for that question in all the normal places: Facebook, Twitter, in our Discord, if you are a sub or a Patreon patron. And you know what? Your answer just might make it on next week's podcast episode. Whew, there it is. Another question of the week. 3-point shot made.
3.
All questions of the week are 3-point shots, and we always sink them 100% from the field.
Boom. Like Steph Curry out here, except way better.
That's right. He not even Steph Curry's
Devin
100.
Booker, he just won the 3-point contest.
There you go. What else we got going on today? We're almost wrapping up. Is it buy sell trade time?
It is buy sell trade time. So I don't really have a whole lot this week because I've been trying to save as much money as I can because we have a big event coming up it just comes up so fast, and then you have to try and manage your costs and weigh your expenses, and yeah. So we also spent a ton of money on Ultra Prism. So I'm not buying a whole lot right now, but I did snag some Sylveons just in case that goes, up in price. I did buy some more Weaviles just in case that goes up in price. I got some Metagross just in case Metal goes up in price. So I've been focusing on decks that are fairly cheap right now, cards that are fairly cheap right now that could have a place in the meta moving forward. And other than that, we got our PSA returned back, and I shot a YouTube video that is now up, so you can go check that out on our YouTube page.
Should we give the people a spoiler? What's the highlight?
I don't know.
There are multiple. The name of the video is multiple PSA 10s. So
yes,
there's more than one Gem Mint 10, and you're just going to have to watch it to find out what we got, but one of them is worth hundreds of dollars.
Yes, one of them is worth more than the entire investment of all the cards put together. Pre-grade, yeah.
Gosh, that's
including
fun.
The grading cost.
Gosh, that's so fun.
So that's all I've got for buy sell trade this week.
I guess, and then we can jump into our open discussion. Who's got something for that? I do, but I want to let you guys go first.
Okay, well, I got a little something. So I've been working locally with some families to get Pokemon League going, and I think we might move the day. We've been doing Saturday evenings, and it just really hasn't been taking off after these few months. So I got to talk with the store owner a little bit more. We might just move it to Sundays, noon to 4, I think. Maybe that'll help get some people out. But otherwise, it's been fun. What else? What else is going on in Darren's life? Pokemon-wise, yeah, nothing else, I guess. Just have been working and sleeping and hoping and praying. There's a song in there somewhere. Guys, we have about 100 days. 100 days, basically, until Madison. Right?
Wow, I don't like it when you say it like that. Makes it seem like it's tomorrow.
Good.
Basically.
So that's basically all I've been thinking of.
I have nothing for open discussion, Dan, so you can go ahead with your stuff.
All right. I just want to give a quick little update announcement about Team Dead Draw Gaming. We have added one new player into the pro team side of things as of today, the day that we are recording this. So I want to give a warm welcome to Joey Rudiger. You guys, if you watched the OCIC stream, you saw him, unfortunately, be the runner-up at OCIC, losing to Tord in the finals. So we got second place there. He recently top 8'd in St. Louis. That just happened this weekend, so congratulations to him. He's currently 6th in the top 16 of North America, and we're super excited to have him on. So be on the lookout for the next top player with a Team DDG hoodie on.
Yeah, that is so cool. Joey, welcome to the squad. That's awesome. I can't wait to see what he can bring to the group.
Fantastic. Well, if that's all that we have, Dan, why don't you take us home?
All right. So, you guys, if you enjoyed episode number 72 of Dead Draw Gaming, a Pokemon TCG podcast like no one ever was, make sure to hit that like button down below and share this podcast with all of your friends. That is all I have for you. Make sure to check us out next week for episode number 73. We are going to talk about Costa Mesa and get some other things going. But again, that's all we got. So for Darren, for Danny, and for myself, Dan, we will see you next time.